Hello guys, so in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to render out a turntable for this character. So as you see, I've already posed this kind of simple character. I've got some nice reference here. I really liked these Toy Story portraits that I came across recently. So I'm looking to kind of use this as my reference and just the way the kind of light hits. There's loads of nice variation of like how light hits materials differently. So the kind of you get the shiny or kind of matte materials, the like kind of plasticky displacement type maps as well, shinier. I mean, you can see this is all made of plastic, but each piece is slightly got a different surface and stuff, so the light hits differently. It's obviously like glass as well. So yeah. Now I've made quite a nice light rig that'll be available to download on the link. I'll put the link in a few places so that you'll have access to. But I'm just going to import it from my project file here. I've just got the studio lighting.ma. And you see it's quite small at the minute, so what I'll do is just come into my outliner. And here it is. I'll just delete that one and then I'll just scale it up. I'm using pure ref here, so I really like it. It just kind of sits on top of the workspace all the time, and you can just kind of move it around, zooming in. Really nice for arranging it. You just put it. I can often just pop it down out of the way and stuff. Even better if you've got dual screen as well. Just have it up there on your second monitor. I'm just going to pop this down here for now because I don't need it just yet. Oh, actually, I can just hide it. Control H. Oh, Control H gives you the options there. But yeah, just search on Google if you want to try out PureRef. And I'll just find it down here. So hide it for now. I'll bring that back up in a sec. Let me just talk you through these lights. I'll open up the attribute editor. I've made them into what we call softbox lights. So in the color channel, I've made a box ramp gradient. Obviously this is all set up for you anyway, but if you ever were interested in making it in the future yourself, it's just made out basically a box ramp. So like I've got a cool light, a bit of a warmer light, some warm colours, and a bit of a white light at the top. Like a bit, just like a nice drop off. So what it does, it makes a real nice soft lighting. I'm just going to check my render settings here because I've been using this file before. I'm just going to hit these back down to defaults, and we'll go through these in a second as well, or later on. So let's put this at a nice little resolution for our test rendering. So we're just going to use baby HD, so 540, so it's the right angle. First thing I'm going to do is create a camera. Zoom out there, and what I'll do is just hide that a second. Got loads of windows popping all over the place, so I'll close that for now. I've got the Arnold tab open as well, which is good. I'm just going to turn the resolution gate on so I know what is in frame. So you can see it's cropped it here, what's going to be in frame. Flick between the cameras, remember perspective and camera 1. So let's just fire off a quick test render. I'm going to find here the light's going to be quite dim, so it's not really doing much. Also forgot to mention within the light group there's a dome light as well, and that's given kind of an overall kind of global light there. If I look here, let's take down the intensity. And I'm going to want an alpha channel later, so I'm going to turn off the camera visibility on it. So if you scroll all the way down to the studio light sky dome, just turn the camera to 0. And I've got an alpha channel. So that's looking good. Let's just have a little play around and ramp up the lights a bit before we add anything else. I'm just going to pin this to the side actually. Like I say, it's better if you have a dual screen. So I'm going to play around with the exposure. I need my outline here to help me select the lights easier. So at the minute it's at an 8, let's just ramp that up to around, just so we start seeing something happen. There we go, get a nice fill light there. Let's try the left light. Start to bring in a bit of warmth from the side. Just ramp up the top. Depending on your computer, this should update quite quickly as well, because it's got low resolution. There we go, it's quite quick. And samples are all really low, but we're getting this grain that we'll figure out how to fix in a bit. So there she is. Now, this is still running here, so if I make any movements, if I readjust the camera, it's going to start updating it again. Because I'm looking to make a turntable here, what I can do is turn on this grid so I can help line her up in the middle. So I can see there. So I can make a bang in the middle for a nice kind of turntable. If you're doing just like kind of videos for different poses and stuff, close-ups and stuff, you can use the camera a little bit differently just for some nice stills. But I just want to do a full shot of her as a turntable. So yeah, I'll turn off that resolution gate now. And then if just come into perspective view, I can now move around but still adjust my lights and get it to update, so I've got a nice kind of view of around her. So these by default are kind of side by side. It's more of like a product lighting, so if you had like a product or like a backdrop behind, you'd use this kind of setup. I'm just going to mess around with it, just get a nicer angle so it just hits the front of the face a bit better. Really nice warm lighting on a face there. So it's a nice 3-point light setup you may be familiar with. Just add a bit more. So we've got the key light, would call it, so the main light source that's lighting the character. So like the kind of another example of a key light would be the sunlight if you're doing like an outdoor animated scene. So the sun is like the main light source, and then we've got a bit of what we call a fill light, or a bounce light, if that makes sense. So we can angle this up. Just this one's basically just to fill out the shadows. So I'll show you what it looks like without that on. You get a bit of a shadow here. Just lift it a bit just to get a bit of nice soft lighting over. And this one would be called the rim light, which is often put behind, so it picks out the kind of silhouette of the character a bit more. Let's just turn that off to show you what it's like without. See, particularly if she's against the black background or dark background, the hair in this colour kind of looks a bit flat, so we can just lift that up. Get this nice rim light here. You can also angle this a bit more as well, so you can get a bit more of it. So I can bring my reference back out now. So looking at this, you can see a nice key light lining up this side of his face, and a very subtle drop light. It's quite dramatic kind of portraits, these actually. Again, key light this side this time. Strong rim light on Rex here from behind, which is nice, and then just a nice soft key light at the front. Strong key light on Bo Peep's face there. This looks like it's more of a front on with a nice rim as well, just to cut silhouette them out there. So to edit the colours as well, you can come into the colour channel, and maybe we don't want as much of a warm light there, so I can just make it completely white if I'm going off this. But you can see there is a slight warmth to it. Just going to lift that there. So if you notice, I'm always using the exposure. Just going to try key light, the rim light, sorry, from the other side, just to have a look. No, I think it definitely works to the side, just to pop her out there. Can always play around the materials, so I've got a hair material here. Have a bit more shine to it. I normally just change the roughness for this kind of stuff. The skin might have a bit more, say 0.5. And the eyes have a bit of a shine to them as well. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. I'll just pause the render there, and I can just close that for now. We've got our little light rig nicely set up. You'll notice obviously this has got a backdrop. Often the backdrop will be composited in after, so you have a bit more control over it. Always depends. I like to do it all after, so I'll just make it in After Effects or something. But what I do like to do is add a ground plane in. I'm just going to add a plane, just scale it really far up. And I'm going to add a material, so I'm going to go right click, add new material. Come to the Arnold tab and click AI Shadow Matte. So basically that just makes the floor into a shadow catcher. So you can't see the floor apart from the shadow. So let's go hit another render. So back to the Arnold tab. Arnold often remembers the last camera you used, but not in this case. So let's just change it to camera 1. So you can see I can't see the ground plane. But if I put the alpha channel on, you can see the shadows dropping off there. I'm actually going to lift this up. You can see the shadow change. Put almost like a bit of a spotlight on it. Go. Scale these up as well if you want to make them a little bit softer as well again. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that now. I'll have a nice alpha channel where I can do some work on some colour correction. So it's important to know, like, I've done some quite nice lighting here, but the colours Could do some adjusting the highlights and stuff, but we can do a lot of that in post-production, which I'll make a separate video for. I'm going to open up the render settings now, so it's the little cog wheel up here in the corner to bring up the render settings. Main thing we're going to be wanting to choose, and we're going to set a frame rate later because we're going to do a 200 frame render, and you want to select camera 1 as well. The image size, this all depends kind of how much time you have as well, or how long it's actually taking. So just have a play around, but I'm just going to lift this to 720. You'll notice it changes a bit the resolution, so we're getting a bit more of a crisper image, more pixels per millimeter ratio. Now let's come to the Arnold Render tab, and we've got some sampling options here. So sampling is basically how many rays it's firing out and how it's shading the model. Now, what we're talking about here is the kind of grain we're getting, maybe the pixelated edges. Now, some of this is to do with the resolution of the image, so if we're going to full HD, that'll help get rid of this as well. But also, we're going to get a balance between the camera anti-aliasing. It stands for anti-aliasing. And this just helps get rid of that kind of pixelated edge. So normally, as a rule of thumb, you can put this up to 5. Actually, I'll bring it back down to 3 so we can take some pictures to compare. So I'm just going to scale this window down a bit, it's huge. Move these out with again. So there's a little camera here. I'll just wait for this to finish up. I'll take a picture. So I took a screen snapshot there. Let's lift it to 5. And the diffuse as well, we'll lift that to about 4. So diffuse is like the shadowing as well, like the kind of matte stuff. Specular helps kind of the highlights. If you've got any subsurface scattering, that'll help that. So I'll show you subsurface in a minute. Actually, it's a nice one. Transmissions for like transparent stuff. Now you can see it's taken much longer already. Now I've lifted this up. It does take a hit on the render time, but it's just finding that balance. So you can see on the arm here, it's starting to look a bit nicer. Let's just hit this to compare. So this was fully rendered before. So it's just smoothed out quite a lot there. Let's just let it carry on. I'll just delete that for a second until it's finished. So mainly we were getting that shading under here. So let's have a little compare. So yeah, this is our first one at 3 camera samples and 2 diffuse. So we're getting much better. And I wouldn't go too crazy with it. I wouldn't want to get rid of it all. Don't worry too much, because we're going to be back here anyway, and that's looking pretty smooth really, isn't it? Really nice. But like I said, you're just kind of balancing it out really. And also if we've got a full HD 1080, it's going to almost double the time it took to render. So let's just see how long it's taken to render there. So it took 1:42. So if you think we're going to do 200 frames of that on for a nice paced turntable, that's quite a lot. So 720 is good enough for you, especially for your hand-in turntables. And I believe that might be on the brief anyway. So let's just pause that for now. Give the laptop a rest. Don't know if you can hear my laptop in the background whirring away. So that's kind of as simple as you need to go really with the settings. I just want you to play with the diffuse and the camera anti-aliasing. Let me show you subsurface actually. Well, in the next video I'll show you a few more tips and tricks.